Well, from America's election headquarters, it's 4 questions for the next 4 years, our segment that gives you a chance to ask the presidential candidates about issues that most concern you. Today, our guest is Republican presidential candidate Carly Fiorina. Mrs. Fiorina, it's nice to have you back on the program. Thanks so much for making the time for us.
It's great to be with you, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
We try to get through 4 questions, but hopefully we'll get through more because we've got quite a few questions for you as we're on the eve of the Iowa caucuses. We do have the latest polling from Real Clear Politics, and that shows you polling right around 2%. And a lot of our viewers have questions about your strategy because Iowa is now being described as a 2-man race between Trump and Cruz. Danny and Johnny both had the questions about the strategy. They wanted to know, what is your strategy moving forward and what is your goal realistically in Iowa?
Well, you know, if polls were predictive at this point in Iowa, we would have had a President Howard Dean, a President Rudy Giuliani, and we already would have had a President Hillary Clinton. We never would have had a President Ronald Reagan, a President Bill Clinton, or a President Barack Obama. In other words, Iowa surprises. Iowa always surprises, and Iowa's going to surprise again. You know, I'm out here on the ground day after day after day, and a whole bunch of Iowans haven't made up their minds yet, which is the way Iowa always goes, and it's the way New Hampshire goes too. I have a great ground game here in Iowa and New Hampshire, the early states. We have leadership teams in 25 states. We'll be on the ballot in all 50 states, which is something that a bunch of governors who are household names in politics and who've spent tens of millions of dollars on the air cannot say. And I started this race 17 out of 16. I have come further behind than any other candidate. So I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, which is get out here day after day after day and talk to voters on the ground. We will surprise in Iowa.
What is the driving principle? That's an interesting question that we got from Laura about your guiding principle approaching running for president. What is keeping you going?
Well, you know what? Media doesn't get to decide who's going to win. The establishment doesn't get to decide who's going to win. The polls don't get to decide who's going to win. Voters do. Ours was intended to be a citizen government. I'm running for president because I think we have to restore citizen government in this nation. The political establishment has owned politics and government for too long. The elites, the media, they all think they own it, but guess what? Citizens own this nation. So I'm running because we have to take our country back.
We have an interesting question about a news item that just came up over the last 24 hours. I'm sure you've seen it. It's out of Texas. It was the news that a grand jury has indicted the filmmakers of those controversial Planned Parenthood videos, not Planned Parenthood. And quite a few of our viewers, including James, wants to know what your reaction is to that news and whether or not it changes your opinion, your strong opinion, on the videos and what you say they portray.
Well, it doesn't change the facts. You know, look, Hillary Clinton hasn't been indicted either. So what does that say about our justice system? But here's what I know, and here's what Americans know as well. Planned Parenthood engages in late-term abortion, partial birth abortion. They alter abortion techniques in order to save and harvest body parts. The reason we know that, never mind the videos, Planned Parenthood itself has come out and said that they're no longer going to accept compensation for doing these things. What we also know is the vast majority of Americans find these practices abhorrent. And what we also know is that it isn't fair to have taxpayers funding what is essentially a political operation. Planned Parenthood is a political operation. They funnel millions of political dollars into pro-abortion candidates year after year after year. Why should taxpayers fund that? So, my opinion hasn't changed, the facts haven't changed, and there will not be a dime for Planned Parenthood funding in a President Fiorina budget, but there will be plenty of funding for women's health.
In a recent interview, you said you're not doing sport, not running for president for sport. You're not doing this to be vice president or some cabinet post. But quite a few of our viewers also wanted to know about your plans in general and the different options that you might have. One viewer on our chat said if she's not chosen as the Republican presidential candidate, would you be willing to serve the person who is? Another viewer said, would you consider the VP spot? I would very much like to see you as vice president and then potentially give it a run at the White House. I'm sure you hear this as well. Mrs. Fiorina, what do you think about that?
Well, you know what I would say to people who really like me? Vote for me. because I can win this. What I would say to people who really like me is go check out CarlyForPresident.com and my blueprint to take our country back. Think carefully about what we actually need in the Oval Office. We need someone with executive experience. We need someone who understands the economy. We need somebody who understands the world. I have more foreign policy experience than anyone running. We need somebody who understands technology. We need someone who's led in their life and produced results. That's how you go from secretary to the CEO of the largest technology company in the world. So if people like me, don't listen to the media and the establishment about who can or cannot win. If you like me, vote for me.
Well, and we'll see what they do as we follow the caucuses over the next 6 days, or the start of the caucuses in Iowa. I just want to get one final question. We just did this segment with Colonel Cowan on our show about ISIS. And we have ISIS with a new video out, and you mentioned your foreign policy expertise. ISIS has a new video out. The British Prime Minister, through a spokesman, says we're not going to take it very seriously. You have the French president saying, I'm going to up my state of alert. Colonel Cowan says nothing will change for ISIS unless you turn Raqqa into a rubble pile. What is priority number one? And we got quite a few questions from viewers on this as well. When it comes to ISIS, where is the top priority on your list to overthrow them and to defeat them?
Well, it's part of my blueprint to take our country back. We must lead again in the world, and that starts with defeating ISIS. We must defeat them. And the only way to defeat them is to deny them territory. Territory that unfortunately they took because, among other things, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, against all the advice of our generals, withdrew every single troop out of Iraq and declared victory, thus leaving vast swaths of territory, not to mention weaponry, for ISIS to gobble up. To defeat ISIS, we have to be clear about who our allies are in the fight against ISIS. Our ally is not Russia. Our ally is not Iran. Our allies in the fight against ISIS are Jordan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Bahrainis, the Emiratis, and the Kurds. I know virtually all of these leaders. I've been in their countries. And they will help us in this fight, but they won't help us unless they know we're prepared to lead. They will not help us unless they trust us, and they do not trust us right now because we're cozying up to our adversaries and theirs, who are Russia and Iran.
I only have 30 seconds here, but Barbara quickly wanted to know, she just popped up on my Twitter feed as well, whether or not that includes the option of putting boots on the ground.
Of course, we never take an option off. But realistically, what it probably includes first is a far more effective bombing campaign, more special ops forces, different rules of engagement, and it requires us to give these allies that I mentioned what they've asked for. So the Jordanians have asked for bombs. We're not providing them. I will. The Egyptians have asked for intelligence sharing. We're not doing it. I will. The Kurds have asked us to arm them for years. We're not. I would. The point is, our allies have asked us for very specific kinds of support. This administration is not providing that support. I will.
Ms. Fiorina, it's great to have you on the program. We look forward to having you back to take more of your questions. It's always fun. And best of luck in Iowa.